The year is 1993. A short, skinny former English teacher walks into a newly opened KFC in Hangzhou, China. 24 people applied for the job that day. 23 were hired. He was the only one rejected. He was told he was too short, too ugly, and simply not good enough to serve fried chicken. And that man was Jack Ma. And he would take that rejection and turn it into a $400 billion empire that would bring the American banking system to its knees. But just when he reached the very top, he made one fatal mistake. He opened his mouth, and then he vanished. To understand why the most powerful man in Asia disappeared, we first have to understand the impossible odds he overcame to get there. Section 1. The boy who couldn't do math. If you looked at Jack Ma's resume in the 1980s, you wouldn't see a billionaire. You would see a statistical anomaly of failure. Born Ma Yun in 1964, his start was anything but promising. He didn't just struggle in school, he was actively terrible at it. He failed his primary school test twice. He failed his middle school test 3 times. And when he finally sat for the grueling Chinese college entrance exam, his math score was a tragedy. Out of a possible 120 points, he scored a 1, less than 1%. By all conventional metrics, he was destined for a life of manual labor. But Ma had one skill that couldn't be measured on a test: grit. For 9 years, every single morning, rain or snow, he rode his bicycle 40 minutes to the Hangzhou hotel. He wasn't there to work, he was there to ambush tourists. He offered free tours of the city to Westerners in exchange for English lessons. He realized early on that the world was bigger than Hangzhou, and language was the key to unlocking it. It was one of these tourists, a pen pal, who nicknamed him Jack because Ma Yun was too hard to pronounce. But knowing English didn't pay the bills. After graduating from a third-tier teacher's college, the rejection started piling up. He applied to be a police officer. They told him he was no good. He applied to be a hotel waiter. Rejected. And then came the infamous KFC incident. It wasn't just that he was rejected, it was the specificity of the failure. Being the only person out of 24 to be turned away is a special kind of psychological torture. But Jack didn't break. Because in 1995, a trip to Seattle would show him something that made fried chicken look irrelevant. Section 2. The $60,000 gamble. Jack was in Seattle working as a translator when a friend showed him a computer. He was terrified to touch it. He thought if he pressed the wrong button, the expensive machine would explode.
Just type something.
Jack typed one word: beer. The search results flooded in. American beer, German beer, Japanese beer. But no matter how hard he scrolled, there was no result for Chinese beer. That was his Matrix moment. China, a country of 1 billion people, was virtually invisible on the information superhighway. He returned to China obsessed. But his first 2 ventures failed miserably. It wasn't until 1999 that he made his move. He gathered 17 of his friends, mostly former students and colleagues, into his small, unventilated apartment in Hangzhou. This meeting is now legendary. There is grainy footage of it online. Jack stands in the middle of the room, speaking with the fervor of a religious leader. He tells them they are going to build a global company that will last 102 years. He tells them they are going to take on the giants of Silicon Valley. These 17 people, later known as the 18 Arhats, scraped together every penny they had. They raised $60,000. It was their life savings. They bet it all on a website with a funny name, Alibaba. Jack chose the name because Open Sesame unlocked treasure. He wanted to unlock the treasure of China's small businesses for the world. But there was a problem. A massive shark was swimming across the Pacific to eat them alive. Section 3. The crocodile in the Yangtze. The shark was eBay. By 2003, eBay was the king of global e-commerce. They entered China by buying a local giant, EachNet, and immediately captured 85% of the market. They had deeper pockets, better technology, and global brand recognition. Jack Ma had an apartment and a team of 18 people, but Jack understood something eBay didn't. He understood the Chinese mindset.
He famously declared, "eBay is a shark in the ocean, but I am a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we lose. But if we fight in the river, we win."
He launched Taobao, a direct competitor to eBay, and he made a radical decision. eBay charged listing fees. Jack made Taobao completely free. He burned cash to suffocate his enemy. But free listings weren't enough. There was a fundamental mechanical flaw in Chinese e-commerce: trust. In 2003, there were no credit cards in China. People didn't trust strangers. Buyers wouldn't send money until they saw the goods. Sellers wouldn't ship goods until they saw the money. It was a standoff. So Jack Ma invented a mechanism to break the deadlock: Alipay. Here is how it worked. It was a digital escrow service. The buyer sends money to Alipay. Alipay holds the cash and tells the seller, "The money is here, it is safe, ship the goods." The seller ships the item. The buyer receives it, inspects it, and clicks "Confirm." Only then does Alipay release the money to the seller. It seems simple now, but in 2003, this was revolutionary. It solved the trust deficit of an entire nation. Within a few years, eBay's market share in China plummeted from 85% to nearly zero. They retreated in defeat. The crocodile had won. The $25 billion rock star. With eBay gone, Alibaba exploded. It became the operating system for Chinese commerce. By 2014, Jack Ma was ready to take his victory lap on the global stage. Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It wasn't just a success, it was a record breaker. The IPO raised $25 billion, the largest initial public offering in history at the time. Jack Ma was no longer the ugly reject. He was the richest man in Asia, and he acted like it. While most CEOs were boring suits, Jack was a performer. At Alibaba's anniversary party, he rented a stadium filled with 40,000 employees. He rode out on a motorcycle. He wore a gold mask and a Michael Jackson-style leather jacket. He danced to Billie Jean in front of a screaming crowd. He was untouchable. He was the face of modern China, a symbol that anyone, even a teacher who failed math, could conquer the world. His empire grew to over 1 billion users. He handled 80% of all online commerce in China. But absolute power creates a dangerous illusion. You start to believe you are bigger than the system that allowed you to rise. And in October 2020, Jack Ma decided to test that theory. The date was October 24, 2020. The location, the Bund Summit in Shanghai. The audience, the most powerful regulators, bankers, and government officials in China. Jack Ma took the stage. He was days away from his biggest victory yet. Ant Group, his financial technology company, was about to launch its IPO. It was valued at over $300 billion. It was set to raise $34.5 billion, smashing his own previous world record. He should have played it safe. He should have thanked the regulators and sat down. Instead, he dropped a bomb. He publicly criticized the Chinese banking system.
He accused the state-owned banks of having a pawn shop mentality.
He said they relied too much on collateral, assets you could hold, rather than big data and creditworthiness. He essentially told the old guard they were dinosaurs. It was a 20-minute speech, and it cost him everything. The reaction from Beijing was swift and brutal. State regulators were furious. They viewed his lending practices as a systemic risk to the country's economy. On November 3rd, just 48 hours before the Ant Group IPO was set to launch, it was suspended. The $34.5 billion payday evaporated instantly. Alibaba's stock price crashed, wiping out billions in value. But the financial loss was the least of Jack's problems. Suddenly, the man who loved the spotlight went dark. Jack Ma disappeared. For 3 months, nobody saw him. Rumors flew wild. Was he in prison? Was he under house arrest? The crocodile had finally met a force he couldn't outswim. Jack Ma eventually resurfaced, but he was a changed man. Gone were the leather jackets and the rock concerts. Gone were the bold speeches. He was spotted quietly in Spain, studying agriculture technology. He was seen in Thailand, visiting street food vendors. He took a teaching position in Japan. He had returned to his roots, a teacher, a student, a traveler. Back home, his empire was being dismantled and restructured to comply with new regulations. His net worth had practically halved from its peak of $61 billion. But to call this a failure misses the point of the Jack Ma story. Remember, this is the man who scored a 1 in math. This is the man rejected by KFC. He has always been a survivor. By late 2025 and into 2026, reports surfaced that Ma was stepping back into an advisory role at Alibaba. Not as the loud king, but as the quiet strategist. He is focusing on AI and helping the company navigate a brutal new war against rivals like TikTok and PDD. His story isn't a tragedy. It's a lesson in gravity. You can rise from nothing. You can change the world. You can become richer than God. But no matter how high the phoenix flies, it eventually has to come back down to earth. The question isn't whether you will fall. It's whether you have the grit to survive the landing. 1. Voiceover. This script is timed for a 10 to 12-minute video. I recommend a voiceover artist with a storyteller vibe, authoritative but with range for the emotional highs and lows. 1. Visuals. Remember your contrast thumbnail idea. Use that visual language throughout the video. Grainy B&W for the failures versus slick 4K for the successes.